live. Apparently, I will be alone for now. Maybe others will up in at some point. We are talking about why Canada is collapsing. There's a very interesting video I've seen. The biggest reason is, well, I don't want to always talk about the same thing, man and woman and such. So let's just talk about politics for once. Now, as some kind of warning, I'm not the most intelligent when it comes to politics. I have my own opinion, and I probably have a lot of really bad takes. So I guess that will be content, and you can poke fun at me if you want all day. Uh, that's the point of it. So I cannot wait to share my thoughts. And just before we really dive deep into the video, I got sh- I I will share a story there. And this story is on the housing crisis because I know this will be one of the things that will be brought up in this video. Now, the other day I was seeing a very old friend of my family, and we were talking about what was going on, what was wrong with society in Canada. And she was very interesting, and she was like, the woke are trash. Uh, they are racist, and they have discriminatory practices, if that's the right word. So basically, they created a building to fight the housing crisis. And it's interesting how this building only wanted immigrants. Yes, I said it. No whites were allowed in that building if they were born here in Canada. This is where we are at right now. The privileged one are put aside for equity? What kind of bullshit is that? That was story time. Because it is indeed bullshit. We are not an equalitarian utopia. We are a country full of racist and stupid people that claim to be heroes. That was story time. Now, I guess it is time to dive deep into the video. I cannot wait to cover that. I did see the video prior and I enjoyed it. I was like, this is future content. So I will screen share in a moment. In a moment, we shall see what's going on with that. Um, is that the right one? No, it's not the right one. This is the right one. There we go. Why is Canada collapsing? That's the video. We will full screen layout that thing. And I will just make sure it's normal speed. Yes, it's normal speed. I say that because I'm a freak that watches most of his things in 1.5 speed. So yeah, let's see why nobody can afford to live.
Canada, which used to have the reputation as a welcoming, friendly country, is now one of the most hostile places to live in the developed world. Now, this isn't because of the people.
I don't know how much of that statement is true or hyperbole to just be impressive, be scary, and be like, let's have a hook there in our video. I say that mainly because I didn't live in other places. Um, I think it's not going well. I live in a big city and there's a lot of homeless people. And even when you get out of that big city, there's a lot of homeless people everywhere. There are camps with homeless people. But they don't tell you that because that's not welcoming for new people if you tell them, yeah, nobody can live inside any houses. That's the housing crisis for yeah. And that goes back to my story time. There is a housing crisis. It's terrible. It's trash. It's what's going on. So it sucks. So I can understand that statement. Do I fully agree? I don't know because again, I didn't live in other places, but I know the housing crisis is real. It sucks. It's bad. I am a lucky one. I don't suffer that, but I know people who do suffer of that housing crisis. And it's trash. I don't wish that upon my worst enemy.
Of course, it's because of the prices.
My bill just keeps going up. It doesn't matter how much I try to cut back. It's constantly going up. And I just don't even know what to do about it.
You're ripping us off like they're.
So I will sound again like a privileged person, but it is true. It's going up and up. And I will say that because I am the owner of a property I live in. And the prices in the last 5 years went crazy nuts. Almost doubled. Whether it's tax from the city or tax to maintain the building, more money is spent. I did get more higher paid jobs since then, but not by a lot. And I've seen a difference. My pay doesn't match the increase I had in spendings. And again, I am one of the fortunate one. I know people that have it way worse than me. They won't own anything. So when people are saying, "Oh, everything went up," that's true. Even me, I can feel it. I can see it.
Ripping you off.
I feel like they're all in cahoots.
Over the past few decades,
I feel like they're all in cahoots. It's funny because usually when people have blanket statement there, I feel like they exaggerate. They're crazy. They think of conspiracies and such. But the more you think about it, the more it's true. People with the most money, they don't care. It doesn't affect them by any means. It just doesn't affect them at all. But yet they are the one in charge. They are the one that increases the pay for every expenses you have. It sucks.
cost of living in Canada has gone through the roof, propelled by rising costs in housing, groceries, utilities, and pretty much everything else. Meanwhile, wages have stagnated since 2006, while immigration has only increased, and it's led to a wide range of debilitating social issues, like a staggering 20% rise in homelessness since 2018. It's a process that the government has largely...
It's interesting how everything is increasing and they think they can fight it off by having immigrants. Look, I'm dating an immigrant. I'm glad they are here and they exist. But they are not the answer. The answer is here within the country. We must take decision here to benefit us and not like foreigners and people from the outside. We must be clever about what we are doing. Instead of like wasting money in publicity for diversity and such, we should be spending money to build buildings where people can live in. There's a lot of empty spaces where nobody has built anything. Even in my city, like there are places I walk around and I'm like, there we could have a big building with a bunch of buildings in it, or house, or apartment, whatever. We can have something, but no, we are just wasting space because we like to waste space, and then we complain. Oh, there's too many people on Earth. Maybe, I mean, we build towers to house people in, but we also waste a lot of space. But people don't want to admit that. They don't want to say that. We waste space. Okay, let's keep going.
That's happened and even encouraged in some cases, as we'll find out later. But the reality on the ground is that living in Canada is a question of survival, and for most people, these problems have massive negative impacts on how they live their lives. It's clear from the stats that Canadians are suffering. In the Canadian Social Survey of 2024, nearly half of the respondents said that their budgets couldn't keep up with the rising costs. Canadian household debt is another indicator of how bad it's gotten. Per citizen, it's the highest in the G7. But what really paints the picture is how Canada's Prime Minister chose to speak to his country and the response he's gotten from his fellow Canadians.
Now, I gotta address something. Again, I'm not the best person in politics and all. But as someone that lived many years under the Trudeau era, that guy is goddamn stupid. I hated him. The first time he was elected, I didn't vote for him. The second time, because COVID bullshit, I wasn't able to vote. Or it was very complicated. It was very annoying. And I gave up the idea. And he abused of his power. He went too far. And he didn't do anything for his fellow people. No, he was giving jobs to his friends. He was wasting our monies and many travel to look cool and good. And I think he thought politicians are just figures that walks around to look nice and cool and to promote the country. I think this was his view on being a prime minister. And I don't think he was there for change. I think he was there because his father had a politician job. I think he was there because he is some kind of narcissist that wanted to be acclaimed and that wanted to be loved and that wanted to influence people and that wanted to be known. And this is why he walked the earth and spreading the love of Canada. And it's very interesting because I did hear a story about how ashamed his kids are of him and he doesn't understand why. He's like, but I am a prime minister. So I don't know how much of that story is true because I don't know the guy or his family, but it makes sense with the character. Again, I think the only thing he really did was increasing the debt, wasting taxpayer money all the time. And this is why a lot of people are leaning conservative, and I hopefully rewind. I hope we will have a more conservative government after that. I think this is the only way for us not be added to the USA. Trudeau did a lot more harm than good. It was a big issue, and he's the reason why it's collapsing. Well, there's also other issues, but Trudeau is bad news, and I'm glad he resigned because his people forced him to resign. That's a great thing. So let's play the rest.
Strangely, Trudeau decided that emulating bad YouTube apology videos was the best for his message on immigration. The response was, as you would expect, absolutely terrible, with around 68,000 dislikes and 22,000 likes at the time of this video.
That just goes to tell how Trudeau is out of touch. He doesn't live in the same reality as us. And I think it's the case of a lot of other politician, but Trudeau just made it so apparent and clear of how much out of touch he is. And I will bring back a great example. During COVID, it was telling people stay home, but then he went in a house with his family in the countryside. So he wasn't doing his own advice. This is Trudeau in a nutshell. Again, the guy lives on another planet. He is not from Earth. I can bet. He is an alien. I'm joking. But really, Trudeau is out of touch. And I feel like a lot of others are also out of touch when they are in that sphere. And it's interesting how, with the same person I was talking about, the housing crisis, I talked to that person. And that person knows a lot about politics. And she was like, you know what? Just to be a representative of a party, you need 350K. And I was shocked because I didn't know that. And I was like, how do you know? And she was like, I did some research and they wanted to use me for a job in politics and such. So she knows very well about politics and how it works. And I'm not surprised it takes like 350K to be a politician. This is why they are out of touch. Not everyone will have that just to waste on a campaign or just to waste to get the title. With my money, with the money I'm making, it can take me years just to have the hope, oh, maybe I could be a representative of a party and such. So this is crazy. This is what's going on. This is your politics. This is democracy for you. They pretend they give you choice, but no, there's no choice.
In a 7-minute long overpolished video, Trudeau covers the general basics that you'd associate with terrible apology videos. He begins by saying he'll admit his mistakes, even though he doesn't really throughout the video. Then he immediately shifts the blame to bad actors despite the fact that he implemented the policies which let it all happen.
Increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system.
Well, he says that, and I already have a counter argument. He is the one that opened the floodgate for immigration. He is the one that said that's the only way to solve our deficit. That's the only way to make some money back. No, because then you need to house these people. You need to give them a support system so they can survive here. So it's more expenses again. I think one of the biggest issue, and people will hate me for saying that, but one of the biggest way to solve debt and to solve money issue is to make babies. If you're born here, eventually you will join the workforce. Maybe not with AI, but that's another kind of worm here. I think one of the many answers is let's make some babies. Let's stop wasting monies in red tapes. So let's display the rest of Trudeau BS.
For their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years.
The biggest fault with his press release, though, lies in the short section where he diagnoses Canada with a labour shortage. While Trudeau himself doesn't go into much detail about why this is apparently the root cause of Canada's problems, the video does use part of an interview with Dennis Darby, a representative for Canadian industry. He says while talking about Canada's industry that, quote, "We've had a chronic shortage of labour over the past decade. It's the #1 issue."
So we think there needs to be more, and you need to continue to push that, push the pedal to the floor to bring more people into Canada.
This moment has become a focal point in the overwhelming negative response to the video. And of course, lots of the top comments are just people that are astounded by how tone deaf the video is. One of them...
I gotta say this. They mention a shortage of people working and all. I think there's a lot of factors. Number one, AI. Number two, agencies and industries, they don't want what's best for the people. They want what's best for their CEOs. So this is why we started having these machine replacing cashier and such. Now, some people may say, oh, but if these machines are there, it's because less people want these jobs. It's a bit true, but it's also false, because trust me, even if you add the option to have these workers, the workers cost a lot more than your machine. Your machine, you pay it once it's there, and boom, you don't spend more money. At some point it will break, can spend a bit more money, it's fixed. A working person, you need to pay that person the entire year, and then the next year, and then when they go on vacation, you still need to pay them, because we have rights here in Canada, apparently. I think the machine saves some money to the CEOs. I might be wrong. I would need to really research truly that aspect, but I wouldn't be surprised if machines are indeed saving some money. And another thing is, these jobs that nobody wants, they don't pay enough. You need several of these to just survive and afford rent and such. So because of that, nobody wants that. another factor of why there's labor shortage, or I don't know how they called it. People don't make babies anymore. The only ones that do it are the foreigners, the immigrants. And that will feed back again to the man and woman gap in war. And I hate it because I didn't realize that would go back to this again, but it does. It's really harder to date today in 2025 than it was in 2020. From 2019 to 2020, I had a relationship, and it was very easy to find someone. 5 years later, I'm no longer with that person, and I did struggle a lot. And I improved as a person. I have a lot more to offer as a person. But yet, the struggle is there. So I think my guess is I'm not the only one in that boat. A lot of people really tapped out of dating. Or a lot of people are dating, but there's no success because they don't match. Only the same people get all of the attention. So because it's harder to find relationship and people that are committed and that really want meaningful connection, we don't make babies anymore. The white state, they don't want babies. And there's a lot of narrative and a lot of people that also don't want babies. So guess what? If the whites stop making babies like what's going on right now, we will have less people working. So I understand why we get immigration and all, because they're the one making babies, but like we should make babies as well. Everyone should have babies. I sound crazy. But yeah, that's the labor shortage.
Right? This is like someone who sets fire to everyone's house in the street, then sits them down for a serious conversation on fire safety. Another lays blame squarely on Trudeau's shoulders, saying, people are mad because people born and raised in Canada can't afford to live. You've been talking about housing your entire time in office, and yet the problem has only gotten worse. But the video's insinuation that Canada's problems lie with a labour shortage has been particularly highlighted, with lots of comments denying that it's even true, let alone relevant. It's because it shows just how out of touch Trudeau and the establishment have become to regular Canadians' problems. To back up the point, they took interview quotes with CEOs and senior executives on the biggest problems that they're facing instead. All the while, Trudeau is acting like evil corporations are the real problem, while ignoring the fact that he's the one in charge of regulating them. The reality
I also gotta add this. Politicians, they want to wash their hand on any accountability, and this is what's going on with Trudeau. They don't realize they're the one in charge. Again, the video is right on that. And I feel like if it didn't cost $350K to be there and to be in charge, I think we would have people more in touch with the rest of the normal people. But no, we get these rich on top that speak and think like rich people, and that's never their fault because they always had the money. I feel like a lot of the blame of the crisis and what's going on here right now should be from the establishment, the people in charge. They are the ones that made bad decisions. They are the ones that control our lives. So guess what? Fire them all. Burn the parliament to the ground. Burn the building where they work at to the ground. No, I'm joking, but really, it's an issue. They create issues and they can't solve anything. It's crazy. It's crazy. Let's just play.
on the ground, though, is that there are plenty of jobs in Canada, but wages have stagnated, so they just don't pay enough to give people good lives, or even keep them out of poverty. The unrelenting cost of living crisis in Canada has been disastrous for the country and its people. No cost is more impactful or substantial than housing, and it means that rising housing costs have been the biggest factor in the entire crisis.
And again, that goes back to the bad decision making of the people on top, because they see, oh, the owners, they got money, so we will let them go crazy. We will let them do whatever they want without regulating them very well. And it's the issue. It's not normal that someone can have like 5 building, and because he has 5 building, he can control the price range and what really should um, people be paying to have a roof on their head. I feel like it would be fine to have an industry where we have an owner that has several building and he makes money out of it. I feel like that would be fine if it wasn't that discriminatory. I cannot talk anymore, but I feel like the true issue with that is they are really in charge of that market. But that's the issue. I feel like if you say, oh, here's the roof, and you make your tax according to that roof, you could control how much money enters in the bank account of these rich owner that has several buildings. That's the best answer. But if you do that, they will hate you and they will move somewhere else where they don't regulate them. I think it's a very complex issue, but I think when I hear a story of someone having several buildings and living off these buildings without really needing a job, this is part of the issue. I'm one that wants other building to rent, but I have morals others don't. If I end up owning more than one building, I will only charge people that live there enough for me to sustain the cost linked to that new properties and maybe a bit of gain here and there. But I won't be there. Oh yeah, I want this to replace my job. I feel like a lot of the homeowner and such, they want this to replace their job. And I think this is where it's unfair. Because when you think that way, the people that have a roof because you provide them a roof, they struggle to live. They struggle to pay your rent because you're greedy. You want money. I want money, but I don't want it to be at someone else's expenses. But a lot of these people that have money, they want more. Greed drives them. I don't know if I was clear enough on that, but the housing market suck. And it has really bad decision making. So yeah, I guess we will move on with the video shortly. I timestamp this. I think it's really bad decision making to let these homeowner just go wild and they don't need a job anymore. This is really bad. It's good for them, but it's bad for the people, the ones that struggle, the ones that basically carry your system on their shoulders.
So there's no better way to see how bad things have gotten than by looking at Canada's largest city of Toronto and its terrible housing crisis. Before we continue, I want to tell you about our video sponsor. You see, if you're still carrying around a clunky
I skipped the ad because I don't give a crap.
to its massive tracts of land. But even with that relatively low population, a large chunk of those people live in a small collection of large cities, over 73% as of 2021. Canada's population and economy is therefore focused on these large cities. Toronto is the crown jewel, with a population between 6 to 8 million people depending on how you define the city. It's the center of Canada's financial sector, and during that time,
And I will add something on that. There's more access to everything in big cities. There's public transport. You don't need a car that costs you way too much. Hell, sometimes if you're lucky, you can walk to your job. You can walk to the grocery store without spending way too much in gas. Or you can save some money and use public transport instead of spending thousands or hundreds and hundreds of dollars for your gas, and if your car crashes or breaks, you spend more $100,000 to fix it. Use the public transport. So this is why in cities you get more people. It's because they access to everything. There's more building, there's more places to work at as well. I got friends and family in countryside. It's shallow, it's empty. Most of the time it's old people living there, or very traditional family where they've lived there since the 1600s. I'm joking, I don't know. But I feel like when you live in countryside, everything is so far away. You depend on having a car. Because you depend on having a car, you depend on a lot of expenses. So again, it's normal that in cities like that, there's more people and there's more job, there's more opportunities. Uh, because of that, the housing market there also sucks as well, because people know it's where people want to be. So let's just steal their money, as one can say.
Time in power, Trudeau's coalition government have taken advantage of this imbalance to push forward an agenda focused on benefiting the wealthy minority in control of those cities. And it's come at a massive cost.
And this is the liberals for you. This is how they are. They pretend to be for the people, but they're not. They're there for their own gain. They are there for their parties and their friends. Liberals, they only benefit the rich. They have proved it times and times. And they are out of touch as well. They don't realize what's going on.
Cost to Canada's rural population, but it's also done terrible damage to Canada's urban people as well. A lot of this is because of Canada's descent into a process called financialization. As described by Canada's Centre for Housing Rights, financialization is when housing transforms from something necessary for survival into a speculative financial asset. Regardless of where you live, you'll probably have seen.
So that goes back to what I said. Some people, they own many buildings. And they own many buildings because they see it as a business. They want to live off that business instead of working and having a true job. So people are all about gain and greed. There's no morals when it comes to owning a building. It's disgusting. And again, I know there are expenses when you have buildings. The true issue is when you see it as a job. It should be an added bonus. It should be something where you earn enough to buy back anything that you need to spend to keep that property, and it's okay to make a bit of money of it. But if it's your main source of income, I question if you are a person that really cares about others. And I feel like you are also part of the issue with the housing crisis. Oh, I just realized I just realized someone I just realized I talked about it, and there we go. So it's my fault if we didn't add guest prior. It's hilarious. I'm not doing that great today. It's weird. So that's funny. I just realized I didn't link the stream here. Hopefully you will join in. Yo, bro, I just realized I didn't link it.
Yeah, I was waiting, going, are we doing a stream just because the other two aren't here, or just one? And
my bad, man. I don't know. Like, look,
I didn't even look at YouTube. I was watching other stuff, so I was like, I should.
My brain is fried. So last weekend I was occupied, and I barely slept last weekend. And today it was a bit AC when I woke up. So that's entirely on me. I was like, why nobody's joining? But I didn't realize I didn't link it in the chat. But welcome, Mandalore. So so because you're there,
I'm here.
I will go back.
You don't need to start from the beginning.
Okay, so I will kind of recap then. So what's going on is they mentioned Trudeau and his bad management. Any thoughts on that?
On his what?
On Trudeau bad management of like the politics he did and immigration, and it
Oh,
started basically up to the point where he got kicked out by his own party.
he got kicked. They would have kept him if it weren't for their jobs. The problem was they didn't kick him out when he was doing a bad job. They kicked it out when they realized no one was going to vote Liberal in the next election if he was running. They didn't care about, no. That's the problem with the Liberals and a lot of people who support the Liberals going, see, they kicked him out. They're not standing behind him. No, they didn't kick him out when he was doing all the horrible things, not until it got so bad that they knew they couldn't be, no one was going to vote for them, because a vote for him was a vote for them when it came to the next election. So that's when they went, shit, this is actually affecting us. So let's vote him out to cover our own asses. His policies were horrible, and the fact is he's still holding the country hostage, and if I'm not sure if you've seen the video, he's threatened Canada that he knows he's on his way out, so he's going to go as harsh as he can just to fix things before the next election. The NDP propping him up the whole time.
I've seen his apology video, it doesn't seem like an apology.
I watch as little of him as possible because it hurts.
It hurts my brain.
It's just, he has doomed the country, and I don't even know if Pierre could save us at this point. As much as I'd love to be an equal country to US like we used to, like go back to the 90s, early 2000s when our dollar was closer to equal back then. Like I remember when we were when it was within pennies. I remember for like a short bit, I can't remember if it was during Bush or not Bush.
Harper.
No, yeah, well, it was during Harper, but I can't remember which president where our dollar was better than them by a few pennies. I remember for a very short period, and like I know when I was younger, when my dad was younger, he talked about when he went to the States, even when the Canadian dollar was better. But I'm talking about in my lifetime, I remember at one point for a very short bit being better, and we're never getting back to there. And I don't even think Pierre can save us at this point. Not even just because Trudeau screwed up so much. I'm losing faith in Pierre just for how he's been reacting to everything and other things. Like not to be racist, one of our biggest problems right now isn't just the inviting of terrorists in. It's how many of the Punjabi Indian people are coming in, literally stealing jobs. Like if you've seen like when they post Tim Hortons has a job opening, that there's lines of nothing but Indian people.
Yeah.
Just standing like blocks and blocks for a single Tim Hortons or McDonald's job. And they've admitted recently that there's a fuck ton of them on here on student visas and other such visas, which are fake, or they aren't actually here for students and they're staying. Like we just kicked out one guy recently, but there's how many of them who are here illegally?
Yeah.
And Pierre is bowing to them. Like he's doing the same bullshit that Trudeau's doing with every time he go, like if you want to go and celebrate with a religious group or people to help them celebrate their holiday, that's fine. Show support, keep the votes, but you do not. I understand about being like sensitive to them, but he's going around and dressing up as them and doing the same costume bullshit that Trudeau does, that we've made fun of him for.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done blackface, but he's doing the same costume thing like when he does with the Indians. He dresses up like when I'm glad he supports Jews and for Jewish holidays and October 7th, but at the same time, he doesn't necessarily dress up because there's not too much to dress up in our gear. It's just a little hat. But he's doing the same. Like the conservatives in Canada are showing to be just liberals, but who are a little bit better. And I'm losing faith in all the conservatives. There's like a handful of conservatives I still trust. Like I think at this point we would be best off being rescued by Trump, because ever since he no, I'm not even trying
You
to be
know things are bad when you say that.
well, it's not even that. It's ever since he even mentioned the tariffs, our dollar's been falling, and we've got all these idiot mayors and whatnot who are and politicians who are going, well, he's going to put tariffs on us, so we're going to put tariffs on him and not buy American alcohol. And I've shown that to my American friends, like the alcohol thing. Like when the first place to do it was BC, I think, that did ban the American alcohol.
British Columbia, okay.
And I showed pictures to some of my American friends, going, "Look how stupid we are," and they're laughing, not because of the stupidity, but they're pointing out just the pictures that they share online, going, "Wait, that's an American brand. That's an American brand. That's an American brand." They still have American brands on the shelves, like they're being stupid about it. And what's kind of funny is, what's his name, Ford.
I can't remember. I'm bad with names.
I can't remember which brother's which, but the Ford who's in office right now is talking like a liberal, like, we don't need them and we're going to counter them and we're going to be better than them. It's like, no, we're not. We can't beat them. We depend on them. It's one thing if Canada was a stronger country, but we're not. The Liberals have ruined this country. And what's sad to say about Ford is when your brother's dead and had a coke addiction and was a disgrace, and you're the one who's still living and in power, and you're the fucking disgrace.
That's funny because we bring this up. I gotta tell two things that I kind of mentioned during that stream. So the first thing I said is, I heard stories of his kids, of Trudeau's kids, were ashamed of him being prime minister and was wondering why I'm prime minister, like he was some kind of angel or savior or some shit. And that just tells us how out of touch these people are. And I think one of the many reasons why politicians are out of touch is because it costs so much money to be in charge. I don't know if you heard about that, but I've got a friend. She is well versed in politics and all, and she was telling me it costs $350K to be to run for being like head of a party like Trudeau.
Oh yeah, because just recently they were talking about, it was the last moment, like it was the last day or two before to run for Liberal Party leader, and you had to get your checks in by a certain amount, by a certain date.
It's crazy, and it goes telling, look, these people, they have so much money to waste that they place it to run the country.
And most of the time, it's not even they have the money to raise, because some of them do, but it's also you have backers and you run things to run, like you get people to back you to run.
Yeah,
like that's why they have people who sell out to companies so they back them. And to people like Trudeau, it's been an investment. It's not how much it costs, because once you become prime minister, as Trudeau has, you steal all the money and you spend all the taxpayer money that you make it back.
Yeah, and not only that, but you also travel all around the world. Yeah, and you just do that to look pretty and be like, oh, look, Canada is cool. We are cool people here.
Well, you saw yesterday when Trump was like going, Jesus Christ, like talking about making Canada part of the U.S. And again, as much as I want to become as much at this point I want to become part of the U.S., I don't think we should become a single fucking state, because that's ridiculous to have a state that fucking huge. I think every province except for yours should become state.
Man, you're so racist.
You can't be racist
as well.
You can't be racist against the French. And the problem also is that Quebec has the most racists and the most terrorist supporters are.
I know.
BC just has the Indians who they can get rid of because they're all here illegally and destroying things. But you guys invited the terrorists in. But I think every province should become a state, or at least a couple states, not just one giant state, because that is
Stupid. Yeah.
um
So I will bring up the second thing I didn't mention, and that was according to the housing crisis. That was the housing crisis. It's a real thing, and I've heard a really stupid story that also makes sense. So it's stupid because it's stupid, and it makes sense because we are stupid. So the story is they created a building to solve the housing crisis, and that building was all about diversity.
what crisis?
The housing crisis, the housing crisis, the housing. You
Explain
know,
it.
okay, so the housing crisis is there's not enough houses, not enough
Oh,
homes for the
housing crisis.
yeah,
I
yeah,
kept hearing ousting. It's like,
housing. Oh yeah,
oh
you're right,
yeah, no, that's
housing.
stupid. That's one thing Pierre has me turn the CBC headquarters into cheap, affordable housing.
Yeah, yeah, you got it right. I just suck with my accent, but so um basically they traded the building to fight that off, and that building was so racist and discriminatory that the whites were not allowed. That was for like immigrants.
Oh, that was all illegals and immigrants.
And
No.
this happened here in Quebec. It's like, yeah, we will make that building, but no whites inside, only the immigrants. That's freaking racist and stupid, but
Okay.
like it makes sense. We are stupid and racist.
And it's been happening in the States, and Trump is fixing it now. we need to we have so many invaders, like we're controlled by China, like but
No
yes,
shit.
I was quickly saying when Trump was even mentioning that make us another state, Trudeau was
Yeah.
in Paris talking to Macron, who's a piece of shit.
And we don't want to be like Europe. I heard horrifying stories about jails being not secured there, that they would carry like salt on them to protect themselves. I forgot the exact name of that salt, but like paper spray. That's what I was trying to
Whoa.
they have pepper spray there to protect themselves from
Not
the
even just in the
crazies.
jail, it's everywhere. They're being overrun, and it's a double tier system where immigrants can get away with nothing. You're not allowed to defend yourself, which we've already pretty much become because the liberals are trying to ban guns altogether. They're now trying to remove, you can't buy kitchen knives easily. Like they're trying to re-engineer the knife to be less deadly. It's just, things are ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's not going well, and that's a recap. And one last thing on that recap in the housing crisis, I feel like a lot of owners they are there for greed. I feel like it should be regulated a lot more. But if they do regulate that kind of stuff more, people would be less likely to purchase building. But that would also help solving the issue. So it's very complicated. It's very hard. But I feel like
It's not even just that. We have people who are given a free house by our government, but they
yeah,
don't own it. They come here as immigrants when they're not immigrants, or they come here, they live with family, or they have a nice house. But the free house that they get, they rent out and treat it like shit and don't keep upkeep. And they're ruining neighborhoods and whatnot.
yeah.
Now, before we move on to anything, I'll be right back. Just give me 1 second. I gotta grab a drink and just quickly grab something. So if you want to rant.
Perfect. Well, so this is what's going on. That was the recap. I feel so stupid. Again, I forgot to link the StreamYard link to the chat. Next stream, hopefully, I will be thinking of it without messing up that hard. Half an hour. I'm surprised I was able to carry the show half an hour, and I'm glad Mandalore was like, no stream. I'm like, no, I've forgotten to link it. So I guess the next React stream, even if this one is far from over, the next React stream will be next weekend, probably Saturday, or maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Um, I know tomorrow there's a show we are doing about movies. and I will talk with Dre to see if he's available Wednesday or Thursday for another stream. If he is not, we will have another react this week. But if Dre is available, we have something planned, Dre and myself. And if there's something going on, Dre and me, well, the next react will be Saturday. Saturday, I also plan on having a gaming stream, so that was like the small tangent there. I'm kind of excited to cover the rest of the video. I will screen share again. There we go. Screen share. There we go. There we go. So we are 6 minutes in. So I guess not even half of that video has been covered. And yeah, I think the recap we just did was kind of interesting. I did timestamp it. And hopefully Mandalore is back soon. I can hear him. He is coming back.
Might help if I take the protective cover, the security cover off the camera, slide it back before I turn it on.
All good. So we had that small tangent there, and we are back. And as you can see, not even half of that video is there. So we still have like a good 10 minutes to react to.
But remember, I can rant about lots of things. So that half video could turn into an hour or until you
That's
go.
Amazing. That's content.
Until you tell me to shut the fuck up.
I feel so stupid, really. Like I was hyped about having people, and then I don't see anybody coming, and I'm like, okay, I will start. Nobody's coming anyway. But then you're like, is the stream happening? It's my bad.
Not me.
Yeah, let's do this.
This happen. Over the past 50 years, buying a home has gone from an achievable goal on an average salary to something that only the richest can afford. Meanwhile, investors who got involved in the housing market have seen their assets skyrocket in value. But while all of this is true, it fails to see the larger point. Financialization.
I will also add something I didn't mention prior in the stream, and since you're there, that could be a nice back and forth. So I got that friend in countryside. They bought an house like 21, 22 years ago. That was like 40 to 50K. And now recently we had Vulture trying to sell off properties of their neighbors, and they sold off an house for like nasty price. And then these sellers,
nasty as in too low to make a profit off of?
No, like millions.
High. Well, the other reason why people are buying out in the country is because they don't want to deal with city people.
Yeah,
because the cities are getting overrun by horrible people, and nothing's being done. So, I'm glad I moved out to the country.
When I said nasty, it's like millions.
Well, nasty can either be too high or too low, like you're undercutting them and they're losing it.
Too high, and so because houses were sold too high, they came to my friend's house and they were like, we can make that property being sold off very well. And my friend played the game just to wonder like how much these Vulture can get. They were like, oh yeah, 300K. So it's like 6 times the price they bought it like way back. It's nasty. And my friends were like, no thanks. It's disgusting. I didn't pay that much, and I'm not out there to make profits. I'm there to secure the future of my kids and such. And that was wonderful, just to see that person rejecting being rich. Like 6 times. It's not like twice or...
Yeah, but the problem is, but you have to look at it. Just because he gets out for that much, where would he move? Would he want to go back to the city and be dealing with them, or to move out to a different place in the country and have to pay 10 times what he would have paid for, depending on where it went? Like, just because you get that doesn't mean you have it, because he'll have to find a new place, and that new place might be more, unless he invested in building a new property. But even just straight empty land can cost a fortune these days.
Yeah, it's funny because also a few years ago, my grandparents, it's actually been like 2 years ago, they sold off their house and their terrain they had for maybe 20 years or so. And the terrain, the area where the house was there, had more value than the house itself. That was hilarious. Like the house itself was so in pieces and in rooms that it didn't add that much value, but the
Oh no,
terrain,
you at a certain point when the house is pretty much beyond repair, you're not buying it for the house, you're buying it for the property.
yeah,
My
and the
friend who passed,
terrain,
my friend who passed away, that house is unable to be safetied or pass any inspections. Um, and he knew he was looking at eventually selling, but looking to move out of country before, actually closer to where I live. But he didn't have money, but he knew his house was in such disrepair, it was worth more as the house actually having the house on the property actually devalued it
yeah,
because you have to pay to remove the stuff. Like,
yeah,
yes, you can sometimes make money off of copper and whatnot, but it's not enough to make it worthwhile. But sometimes a crappy enough house can ruin
yeah, for sure.
the value. Like you pretty much want to take down that house yourself at that point, buy a new place, take down the house, and then sell the empty lot.
And it's funny because recently I was nearby that grandparents' terrain where they used to live for like 20 years, and now there's a building with several apartments, and that felt weird. Um, that was interesting, to
Hell, I
say the
went
least.
I went by where I used to live. The first house the one I was raised in before my parents moved, slightly a little bit south, but the first house I grew up until I was 13, 12 or 13, and that used to be sort of an empty sort of area. Like it was still an in development area since my parents bought it since before my oldest sister was born. I remember where my friend's house was the end of the road off my road. It was a very small sort of area, and now it's pretty much all filled in with houses, and they're building towards the perimeter. And just where I live now, when I first moved out here with my wife, when I moved in with her parents and whatnot, it was there was very little out here. We're a small little asshole nowhere. But we're building out towards the city. The city's actually building towards us, and I say give it 10 years, and we're going to be we're not going to be a town. We're going to be a different area within the city.
That's interesting.
There was just a vote recently to make us part of the city,
wow,
because there's benefits to being part of the city, but there's also a lot of negatives.
More tax, but more service as well, but more tax.
But we're in a country area, so it's a lot of people are like no, because they don't want to deal with that shit. They like being their own town hit play.
Isn't just housing becoming a financial asset, it's the transformation of a whole society to increase the value of financial assets. Nowhere is this worse than Toronto, a city where financialization has been the cause of more than a 40% increase in home prices over the last 5 years alone.
40% is nasty.
Do you know how bad the pricing in Toronto is?
Probably $4,000 a month for an apartment, like 2 rooms, 3 rooms.
My brother and sister-in-law, when they bought their first house, because they moved to a second house, but when they bought their first house, they were in the paper in Toronto because they were young people who bought a first house, and it was a big deal. Like they actually have special articles for young people who can afford new houses in Toronto.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how bad housing is. It's like
it's tragic.
They're so cramped in Toronto. Like all the houses are squished together. There's no depth or width to the houses. They're all high.
Yeah.
And like I remember driving through Toronto, and there's these sort of like small hills that the houses are built on, and you have to walk up those just to get to that. Like there's no parking real by. Like there's no space.
And there's no parking.
No, and it's just like my brother's in-laws live in a nice house, but it's tiny.
And that must cost crazy prices as well.
Oh yeah, no, and then this was a few years ago, like, and it's just going up and up.
But as we'll soon find out, it's also damaged a lot more than just Toronto's housing market. The true cost of Canada's financialization is laid out in the book Critical Dialogues of Urban Governance, Development and Activism. While it's got a wordy title, the actual content is more straightforward than you'd expect. It's basically a collection of essays with some of them describing just how badly financialization has messed up both London and Toronto. Of course, we'll be focusing more on Toronto.
When London is brought up, it's bad.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah.
It's bad.
London, Ontario. I was going to go. Yeah, England is horrible as well, but that's a different thing.
That's fascinating. I feel like
all of Ontario is horrendous, pretty much. The Liberals ruined it.
I feel like USC will also be collapsing if they take us with them.
No, with how it's being run right now, I think we can do. He would be able to handle it, and especially if he kicks out all the illegals and whatnot. The biggest issue will be the removal of taxes. There'll be a lot less funding to the government, which isn't a bad thing because our government,
they waste money.
Well, as I was just talking to one of my American friends going, and a Canadian friend going, holy shit, this is ridiculous. Like, you know what? I'd rather be in the States, save a lot on taxes, pocket the difference, and then have the money to afford emergency medical care and not have to wait 6 months to a year plus. Like, we keep getting more and more articles of people dying, and it's not even a new thing, but we're keep getting these stories of people dying while waiting for specialists and surgeries and whatnot. My sister, who has cancer, was living in New York for a while because it was easier to get it there, and she would have been dead by now.
Yeah.
So
it's sad.
I'd rather be bankrupt.
As chapter 14 describes, financialization has lots of different causes, but one of the main ones is the relatively recent globalization of finance. Even 50 years ago, your options as an investor were mostly limited to your own country. You could invest in foreign companies pretty easily, but other foreign assets were much harder to get into. But that's all changed, and now if you want to put your money into foreign housing markets like Toronto's, you easily can. Banks have even created ways of storing the assets, which let you buy a share in a fraction of lots of other houses, rather than just one building or home. It was this process that led to the financial crash of 2008, but it's also changed the very fabric of cities as well. This is where Toronto and Canadian cities as a whole differ from other Western megacities. When the financial markets exploded over the past 50 years and their economic influence increased, Canada was ahead of the curve. Nearly all Western cities' economies have changed their focus from manufacturing to finance and technology. And
that's crazy. Like, how did this happen? Hire the Liberals. Bring Trudeau in. You can.
Well, I think the Liberals made investing in other countries and other countries being investing in us, so China could buy us up. Well, no, and this isn't just a China owns Canada bullshit. This is also just how many times has China bought property, or how many property managers do we like? When I was working for my in-laws plumbing company, we had property owners who lived in the States, and we would have to deal with middle people because, yeah, why? Like, you make money, you don't have to do anything. You just send a check every so often when repairs are needed, but you get money more often than you have to send money. It's like
that was hilarious because the other day I had a talk with a friend, and we are polar opposite when it came to politics, and he also knows a lot about that, and I like that discussion. So it was leaning more toward liberal, and I'm leaning a lot more toward conservative. And basically, he said the pros and cons. So liberals, the pro was more socialist, more people driven, and the con of liberal is trash economy and shit economy and awful money. And it's funny how he brought conservative. It's like, oh yeah, conservative, they may maybe put back on track the money and the economy. In pros, maybe they will fix the economy if they are clever enough. And in the cons, they are shit with humans.
Oh, that's just bullshit. Because we don't fund everything. The problem is when the Liberals and NDPs promise free healthcare, free dental, free daycare, free everything.
Not free.
No,
We
there
will
is
pay
no
it in
freaking
tax.
free. And our taxes go up every time they promise more things in free. Like the NDP.
More tax.
And what people don't talk about is the NDP are poor. The
Yeah.
NDP. It was recently within the last few months, or at the end of last year, where it was Jagmeet Singh has more money on his wrist than the NDP have in their bank account. They spent all their money on political campaigns.
And I heard he is in cahoots with freaking Trudeau. And
Oh, he is. And he keeps promising to vote against them and vote of no confidence. But then he's like, oh, no. Well, I'm going to side with them for now. And then in March, it's all about his pension. I think I would love for Trump to take over right now and stop the pension.
They don't deserve that much money. Like,
no, he's being paid by other people. Like I remember during COVID, his brother was making money through him, and it's just, and he breaks the rules. And the NDP have gone full commie, where it's what rules for thee, not for me.
That's reassuring.
No,
so vote NDP, guys.
Changed the city themselves, as Chapter 9 describes. This has led to rapid gentrification of the inner city, deconversion of many older housing units from rental tenure to owner occupation, and a slow shift of the immigration reception neighborhoods into the suburbs. In English, this means as the city center becomes the place where all the wealth was created and concentrated, the focus of the city naturally shifted as well. Neighborhoods closer to the city got more expensive, and the old residents got pushed out by investors buying up the homes. These old middle or lower class homes were then either sold to richer people to live in or even converted into much more expensive luxury housing. And as the process continued over decades, its effects reached every part of the city. Any neighborhood with good transport links to the center got much more expensive, until housing prices in the whole city went sky high. Working people.
And if it goes up in cities, it will also go up elsewhere because they will see money being made. So they're like, oh, I want parts of that cake as well.
Not even that. It's also for the fact that I'm just trying to fix my cam because I'm off to the side. It's also the fact that people, if they're moving around, if they're buying up all the properties in the city, where are all the people going? They move. They don't want to deal with all these people, new people in the city, and all these higher property taxes because of everything. So they try and move out to the country. So that pushes country people out.
Yeah.
It's so fucking stupid.
People are stupid.
Well,
People
yeah.
then only got pushed further and further out. Toronto, as the financial hub of Canada, saw the worst of this, although similar things have also happened to the rest of Canada's largest cities, as shown in this graph of Canadian housing prices. So far, all of these things we've talked about are pretty universal across developed economies. So what's made it so bad in Canada specifically? Well, the book we've been discussing so far analyzes all of this in greater detail. There's a few different reasons for why Canadians have been hit especially hard. First, Canada's welcoming of foreign investment into the housing market has been disastrous. For example, a report on Vancouver and Victoria's housing markets showed that over 6 billion Canadian dollars have been laundered and invested by multinational criminal organizations, and that figure will most likely pale in comparison to the so-called legitimate foreign investment as well. It was only a few years ago in 2018 that Toronto started taxing foreign housing market investment above domestic investors. But the problem is also with the policy and the central government. Canada went.
So, what government we had in the last 10 years? I know the answer, but like liberals.
Farce of a government.
When was last time we had conservative? Like 2008 with Harper?
It's been a while.
And people still expect like liberals to change and fix things.
Well, what was one of the things that he talked about? The It'll balance itself, he said.
Yeah, sure.
And people bought
Nice
it.
magic thinking.
No, he got elected because he was the young, attractive guy, so he got the female votes. He promised to legalize pot, so he got the younger people and the potheads vote. And Harper shortly before was pushing a lot of stress onto reserves to show their books, because a lot of people were complaining about how the reserves were in such horrible conditions and whatnot. And but he wanted to know where the money was going, because Canada gives a lot of money to the reserves. So he was saying, you have to start showing your books or we're not giving you any more money, which is a good thing. Everyone who gets money from the government should be showing their books about how the money's being spent.
Yeah.
And Trudeau promised to remove that. So he got the native vote that way.
Yeah.
That is how he got elected, being the young, hot guy who promised to take away accountability and give you drugs.
And it's funny you mentioned take away accountability is the pro in that. It's never his fault. It's other people's fault, or it's the system fault, or it's the industry fault. But you're the one that regulates them.
Oh, he's the one in charge, but every time there's a problem, it's the Conservatives. Who's the ones in power? Who are the ones who are sucking dick for the Liberals and keeping them in power? The NDP. It's their fucking fault.
That's why I'm not voting that shitty party. And it's funny because, like, I can't remember when.
Bloc Québécois.
No, not even that shit. But like many years ago, we had a guy that I think he had cancer in charge of NDP. I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, the last one before Jagmeet. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Jack
that
Doherty?
guy was based.
Jack Doherty was probably the best thing for the NDP, but he was still an NDP, so his stuff was still shit. But he was probably one of the better leaders for the NDP have ever had.
I think I did vote for him, or I voted for Conservative. One of the two. Either I voted for that guy or I wanted to vote for that guy, but I was too young. I can't remember what happened, but man, alcohol is bad. That's not my brain. But yeah, let's play the rest.
I will
Above and
just say
beyond
one
other
thing.
Western economies in case.
Okay,
There's one party you can't blame for anything. The Green
my party. Oh, the Green Party. Oh, you're right. Like what they
The
wanted.
only thing you can blame them for is being drunk on the job. Because Elizabeth May has been caught drunk so many times, and she is either a regular drunk / pill popper, or she's just straight out retarded. And it's a pity job.
It's tragic. This is what you're known for, it's almost as bad as being known as the guy that destroyed Canada, aka Trudeau.
All right, you can hit play.
Catering to speculative investment in the housing market. Chapter 9 of the book explains how this happened in a few short steps. First, the Canadian government made sure that investors could get credit from the government pretty much risk-free with virtually no interest. The advertised reason for this move was to stimulate the economy with more private investment, but it didn't quite work out that way. Instead, the massive amounts of free credit and easy borrowed money created a gold rush for investors. They started bidding wars for homes, massively increasing the prices. A lot of this investment was focused on rental properties, either so that the rent could then be increased or just to turn them into second homes. And this brings us right back to reality, and the outstandingly poor rental market in Canada. Let's go over what we've just been talking about. Gentrification and the transformation of cities decreased the supply of rental properties. Foreign investment decreased the supply of rental properties. And finally, the Canadian government's decision to create a housing market feeding frenzy made things even worse. There have been plenty of other factors that we don't really have time to explore here, like Canada's welcoming of short-term
Very
rents.
simple explanation. The Liberals.
Yeah, they are the cause of every pain.
Like, how bad you have to be that right before you announce the financial report, the person who's in charge of the financial report will quit, and she wasn't even someone who specialized in financials.
Yeah. Didn't they
and she was a relative of Nazis.
didn't they show an historian being in charge of finance or some shit like that?
Freeland was just retarded and a drug and a pill popper. Like, you could see twitch in her. But it wasn't just nerves. Like, there were times that she looked like she was having withdrawals or was high on something. That she was tweaking hard during interviews.
People, guys, people. It's not going well.
No, Canada's a fucking joke at this point. Like, there's like, I want to laugh too, but it's sad. And
It's
there's still people and morons who stand by them, who still swear that, oh, the economy is the best it's ever had. Trudeau's doing great for the country and blah 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 blah.
these people. I own some shit. I can tell. They're glad he legalized their shit.
You know what? I was never for legalized pot or anything back then. Now it's like it shouldn't be illegal at all. And I actually now use some just to help with sleep and other stuff that's developed in my older age. But if I could go back and have Trudeau not win and not have legal marijuana products and not have the meds I need, I'd go back. I would go back to that because it has been a shit show. Like,
I hate Trudeau. Trudeau is dumb. Good riddance.
The Airbnb market in Canadian cities is absolutely massive, and each one is a home that could have gone to someone who actually lives there. But the results are the same. Regular people have been pushed out of their homes, and barely anyone can afford to live in these cities anymore. Now, to even survive in Toronto, you need to make at least $60,000 a year. Honestly, it's more like $80,000
Wow,
if you
that's
actually want to own any
crazy.
possession.
I
And-
don't make that much money.
well, and everything costs more in Toronto.
And I will also add this. I don't make that much money, and I'm not minimum wage. Not by a stretch. I'm like well above minimum wage. I'm like $10 above minimum wage.
Yeah,
So
no.
you're telling me my pay wouldn't be enough to live there? Are you nuts? It's insane. I would
Well, no,
need
you
two
don't.
jobs.
And that's more to own something. Renting is a little bit cheaper. They're
Yeah.
talking. I think this is more directed towards people who own homes, not just but rental prices are going up insane. Like apartments are renting a room out of a house or a basement out of a house. It's still expensive. It's not that expensive, but
I own, and I don't make that much, but like, yeah, it sucks.
it's
In the other large cities, it's a little bit better, but that really isn't saying much. So why did they let all of this happen? We can give a pretty simple answer based on basic
Trudeau is
speculation.
dumb.
It's simply the fact that all of this has made a few powerful people filthy rich. The people who control policy are also the people who own lots of assets and benefit from skyrocketing house prices. They don't care what happens to regular people, they'll push the prices as high as they can as long as people still show up to work every day. It's in this way that high housing prices are a symptom of how unequal the economy has become. But high housing prices, and particularly high rental prices, also creates lots of problems for society by themselves. First, there's the direct cost to companies. Commercial rents have shot up along with residential rents, forcing many businesses to close under the pressure. It's a massive factor on its own, but the problem goes deeper than that. Overall, 33% of Canadians rent, but it's much higher in the cities. In Toronto, it's 48%. Quebec City is at 49%, Vancouver's at around 55%, and in Montreal, over 60% of the residents are renting. As the rents in all of those cities have skyrocketed in recent years, wages have also stagnated. In fact, they've even
And this is also something I did brought up. It's crazy how just in the last 5 years, I got a bit more money because I got a higher paid job, I'm more experienced in my field, and it's just better money wise in my books. But then all of the expenses I got went crazy. And these expenses are a lot higher than the increase I got money wise.
well, like they said, like what I talked about earlier is like all these free things that they keep trying to promise to buy themselves more time and more power. It hurts the middle class more because the middle class makes too much to get some of the benefits of all the free stuff for lower class, but we don't make enough to really survive on it.
Yeah.
Like the middle class is worse off. Like you either want to be poor and helped by the government, but you want to be poor enough that you get helped by the government, but still have enough money to help yourself, or you need to be rich. It's the middle class which is getting fucked royally in Canada.
I think I consider myself middle class, and as you said, I'm really effed up. Um,
Well, because all the taxes are raising the prices on everything, and people go start saying, "Well, free stuff, and we want blah blah blah." It's like, no, but that means taxes go higher. You
yeah,
want, like people say, they want higher wages for grocery stores, like for employees. It's like, okay, how are the companies going to pay for that? Well, they're rich. It's like, no, they have to raise pricing on everything. Then how do you afford things?
and even not every corporation is doing well. I will bring up Moderna.
Well,
Their stock went down, and the end result, guess what? People get fired left and right. They did cut half of my departments, and they did cut a lot of other department as well. I think if things don't do better, maybe in April, I will need to find another job. At least I got March covered based on what I've heard, but like maybe April, I will need to find a new job.
and this is
Um,
why I'm honestly on disability for myself, is because one of my most biggest, because self security and financial security are a big worry of mine. Like when money goes tight, that's when I start getting the shakes and start freaking out, and everything is just getting fucked, and everything's being replaced by automation. Like going to
yeah,
Walmart, almost every Walmart in my city has had their tills, half the checkout tills replaced by self checkout.
and
A
I
bunch,
gotta say, part of it is because we don't make babies anymore, and the other parts of it, it's cheaper to have a machine than an
and
employee.
to pay the price that people are paying, people are wanting. Like people keep saying, we need more money for doing jobs that we're never meant to survive off of. Like
Yeah,
people working at Burger King or flipping burgers should be paid more. It's like, I'm sorry,
you flip
flipping burgers
burgers.
is meant for people as a beginner's job. There are some people who work at fast food chains for a while. I, for a while, had no problems seeing my life, spending most of my time there. And I became a manager at one point. I became the lowest level supervisor, and I was working my way up. But I started getting a lot of stress and started freaking out. It's like, what's more important, money or health?
The supervisors and higher ups like that, they are the one that deserve money, not the one that flips burger. Because I'm sorry, but flipping burger, yes, you are stressed in terms of
I lived
time.
at my Burger King for a couple days, pretty much. There was an old office that was in a break room that I slept in. I think I took a couple breaks because I lived near the Burger King. I was in walking distance. It was about a 10-minute walk. I walked home, had a shower, came back to work because I just felt so disgusting after. And that was after I was a supervisor, like because I had to work in, because fast food has a lot of people changing.
Yeah,
And when I was like, I don't want to do this shit, or they just. So guess who ends up being responsible? The supervisors.
yeah,
And guess who usually gets paid? Who gets paid on a salary when you're a supervisor? Who doesn't get overtime? Supervisors.
yeah. That's
And
true.
they're working extra hard. And the ones who do get, like, I remember one of my worst checks was one of the ones I did the most overtime on. Because of all the overtime I had, my deductions were almost equal to my check. It was almost 50% of my check went to deductions, 50% went to me after all the taxes and whatnot.
Yeah,
I think it might have been closer to 30 or 40% deductions, but it was just the more you make, the more you lose.
and I gotta say, it's kind of special because I try to zoom in. Average hourly wages in Canada have barely budgeted in 40 years. It's kind of nasty.
That's not necessarily that's an issue. It's more the issues of everything else rising.
Yeah,
Now, who's at fault? Now, should our because if you look at your parents and your grandparents, they made like $1 an hour or something doing work, and everything was like a movie was like a couple bucks or a quarter. Like they taught, like your grandparents or great grandparents talked about how things were a quarter and a nickel.
yeah,
And you go, there's not even many nickel or there's no penny machines anymore because the penny's gone. There's not even much nickels. And it's harder to find quarter machines. It's almost all loonies and tuning machines now for gumballs and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now is that people are demanding too much? Where's the base issue? Like,
I think it's the fact that people don't have a decent living anymore.
well, and it's the things, and there's also more things to buy, like internet, and like there's more demand. With demand comes, so like it's a mix of everything. But there has to be a way to correct it, and communism is not the answer. Communism, in theory, is a good idea. In theory, communism, socialism, where even those who can't, where everyone makes equal no matter what they do.
Yeah.
It's that, like, you don't want to be the one who goes to school for 10 years and pays thousands of dollars for schooling to make the same thing as a lunch lady.
Yeah.
For some, like, there should be, but the idea is nice that people can make a living no matter what they choose to do. Do what you love, and you get paid the same as anything else. But it's a pipe dream, and life doesn't work that way. Because if you tell people that you get paid the same no matter what you do, people aren't going to try.
Yeah, that's true.
Put in the extra work to become a specialist if you're not going to make that money.
Specialist money, yeah. And it's fascinating because I was thinking back. I remember as a child, I did spend a lot of time with my grandfather, an amazing man, and he told me, yeah, when I was young, I was working really hard my butt, and back then I was minimum wage, and I had a decent life, and he wasn't rich by any means. And at some point, he wanted to make more money, so he took a second job, and then he kind of lived kind of well. And
well, yeah, like you push yourself, like, oh, I want to have a better life. You either get a second job, you look for a better job, or you start training yourself or going to school on the side to do something better. Like some jobs, you have to have some experience, but you also need some extra skills, and you need to go to school for those just to make sure you can get a job. But the idea of communism and socialism ruins that. It's just like, why try if I'm going to be paid the same? Why put in that extra work? Like, you don't hear about these great communist doctors.
Yeah, they don't exist.
No, because no one strives. Like, you have people who will still be doctors because they care about people, and who were doctors beforehand. But no one, like, societies die.
Yeah.
And like they say, oh, if I want to be an art, like when people, like the potheads who want to think communism is everything, it's like, oh, I can be an artist or I can be a poet and I can survive off that. No. In a lot of those places, they don't like drains because, like, if you can't work, you get killed or you get put in jail. Like, they don't realize that. Like, no. You become janitor and you work. You earn that money. They don't just give the money away. They expect you to actually work.
And you cannot speak against them as well.
Oh, no.
Good night, goodbye.
Just look at
Korea. Backwards compared to inflation and the cost of living. You can tell by looking at a stat called real GDP per capita, and it measures how much the average citizen of a country earns adjusted to inflation. So looking at it will tell you how much real buying power the average person really has.
None.
This is a graph comparing Canada's real GDP per capita to the USA's, and it's not pretty. It's not like people in the US are having a great time, but in Canada it's been getting even worse in the past few years. Now we're at a point where the wage problem has gotten so bad that across the board, Canadians have lower salaries than people from the US. It doesn't matter which state or province you compare. The housing crisis has also played a large role in this. People who are forced to spend over 50% of their paycheck towards rent don't have much disposable income. When all you can focus on is surviving, there's not much time for thriving. And this has a knock-on effect on the rest of the economy in a way that's hard to measure on paper. But
and I will explain something. Maybe I will get too personal there, but most of my mother expense are apartments and food. She's a single mom, and she will never own an house, even if she tries really hard. She will need a second job, but then if she gets a second job, guess what? Both kids will be really neglected, and it will be really bad. So what do we do there? That sucks really hard.
Oh no, but everyone thinks about it. Like the liberals have fucked us so much. It's almost I really, as much as I'd love to be independent again, I don't think we can survive without being taken over at this point.
We can't survive that for sure.
No.
So I will be right back. Someone is knocking at my.
So it's just me. So I should go on a racist tyrant or racist rant until he shows up, and then he'll come back and his channel's deleted, and he'll go, "What the fuck did Rory do?" No, it's ridiculous, and it's just. I understand people who want to have faith that, oh, we can survive this, but we really can't at this point. We've become such a joke. Like, we're not even taken serious anymore on the world stage. Like, you see Trudeau at these global events, and he's just kind of laughed at. Like, he's like ignored, like no one shakes his hand on all this bullshit. It's just, what are we supposed to do when we don't even have a real leader who's not even seen as a real leader? Like,
He is seen as a pariah. Okay, we are back. Thank you for.
I didn't get your channel taken down.
Oh
You should have
yeah.
heard the things I said.
Oh my, I'm scared.
Results are clear in practice. The nightlife industry has been hit particularly hard. Its recent struggles are symptomatic of the wider problem. A report by a research firm called IBIS World showed that over the last 5 years, Canada's nightlife industry contracted by over 4%. The shutdown caused lots of damage, but nightclubs and bars fail to recover afterwards because people just don't have enough money to justify going out very often, if at all. And this is creating a deadly spiral. Rents go up and nightclubs have to charge even more to stay open. And this makes them less attractive to people already paying massive rent bills every month. And so they get less customers. Less customers then means they have to charge even more, and it goes on and on until they have to close. This industry has been hit particularly hard because of their unusual clientele. Young people are the most likely to go out, but they're also more likely to be renting and have less income than older people. But we've still seen the same effects across the whole.
And it's freaking accurate. You know, I remember last time I really went out in bars and all. That was actually before COVID. That's 6 years ago now.
In all honesty, I don't really consider. It could also be that people just. I don't even think that's the marketing thing. I like. Not to sort of change topics from the economy, but I think it's also the fact that one, COVID. There's a lot of these libtards who are just afraid to go out in public.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, you add the whole that people don't trust people anymore. Like, guys are so afraid of being accused of rape by a woman who just regrets the date that they don't even want to bother with it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's just because the cost of the bar is too much. I think it's also a mix of
The
just
social
society.
climate.
Just
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, guys don't want to go, like, and girls are complaining, well, guys don't come out and try anymore. Well, that's because guys are afraid of being accused of rape. Like, you approach the girl and you say the wrong thing, it can be considered rape.
You meet too close to the sun, as someone said in content making spheres. I will say this: like, prices are a factor, but also age. I will be honest. Like 6 years ago, I was in a very dark place. I was doing a lot of overtime for a ungrateful and sexist place that hated men. Yes, they exist. And I wasn't the happiest. I was a mess 6 years ago, and that's why I was going out. But like now I'm myself again for like the last 2-ish years, and I don't see myself going out as much. And I think it's because I became older and I'm better at coping, and I found better ways than drinking my sorrows. I don't know. People change. Maybe I'm crazy. Any
No,
thoughts on that?
that I do agree that's part of it, but it's also very big on the like guys are being accused of rape who have no, they get accused, and like there was one who just came out recently who admitted, oh, she wasn't raped, and she didn't really even I don't even think she knew the guy.
Yeah.
So like guys who just want to go, like, I'm not saying like the original culture was good, but there's guys who are afraid to go out because they're afraid of being accused of being raped without
Yeah.
even doing anything. Like, and I'm not saying, well, if I'm going to get raped, I might as well do it. I'm not trying to be like that. I'm just saying, like, what's the point of going out and trying to have a good time if you're just going to end up being miserable? And that's life ruining. So why go out and risk that if that's what's going to happen? And
Fact.
like when I was growing up, I was never a bar person. I worked at a bar, but I never really went to bars to party or anything. I never saw it as like, oh, that's a great way to meet someone you want, is to get someone drunk and meet them at their worst. Or that's a great way to sort of get to meet, like, it just never seemed good to me. Also, if you need to get someone drunk for them to be interested in you, you're not that good of a person. So yes,
Yeah.
there are some people who probably back in the day should have been charged for rape. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
saying men don't rape, because there's a lot of horrible men. Just look at the Tates.
Yeah.
But like, why risk it? Like, what's the benefit of going out and have your life ruined for nothing?
And we got a dragon here.
Oh,
So
I
welcome,
apologize. I
Dlord.
lose. Well, technically, Monday's been rescheduled for me. So you're talking about the future 51st state?
Hell yeah.
I'll restate that we shouldn't be a 51st state. We should be multiple states. Having one
Yeah.
giant ass
Sorry,
state
I
is
missed
retarded
this.
as fuck.
So I got to say, let's do a recap for the dragon. So
I can do it. I can do it a lot easier
okay.
than you.
Okay, do it.
So are you okay? Let me guess. Let me ask run this. Is it just the problem that the hypothetically fill me in? Because I say this as a dumb American sometimes. Okay, just as we say dumb Canadians should not comment on American politics. You guys, to my knowledge, you guys went left to far left, and it screwed up your entire economy and your social ecosystem. Am I that far?
You got it right.
And then, basically, I remember years ago, I started noticing Canada started walking what we in America call to the far left. Then, eventually, I say, you guys had the trucker thing happen, which we called the last gasp of freedom.
Yeah.
Because normally, like, you can't just declare martial law.
Yeah.
Now, I know Trudeau was supposed to step down, but is that going? Do you guys get a savior, or is it just going to be a replacement?
Okay.
I thought he was a savior at first, but
No,
I'm gonna let Mandalore go on now.
Yeah, Trudeau resigned as the leader of the Liberal Party. He didn't resign as prime minister. He is waiting. He is also suspended the parliament, so nothing can be voted on. Nothing can really be stopped. So he's pretty much in charge without anyone being able to stop him or anything or voted on. It's just what he says happens. It's all within the Liberals. They're waiting for a new Liberal leader, and that race in itself is horrendous. What's the name of the guy who they keep pushing for Liberals? Mark Carney. Mark Carney.
I don't even know his name, and I don't care.
Mark
I only
Carney.
care about Pierre Pouliot.
No one likes him. No one, like, he's not even in a representative of anywhere. He was in Europe. He was in Britain for a while, and they even said, "Don't elect him because he did horrible here." But all the liberal paid media is saying, "Oh, everyone wants him. Everyone wants him." Dealing with Trump, we want him. No, that's just paid for lies. No one wants him. The Liberal Party race is fully fucked, and it's bullshit.
So hypothetically, outside of Ontario, can you guys walk back the
No.
damage done, majority of it.
We would need an
At
entire
this
other
point-
party doing it.
The problem is at this point, it's even if we get Pierre, who is our conservative leader, to elected prime minister tomorrow, so much damage has been done, and even he has sort of lost a lot of confidence in the conservatives. Like, if our election has to be with our leaders, he's the best option, but we don't have much faith in him at this point. But the problem is, there is a way to get him out. You need there's four major parties. All three of them have to vote a vote of no confidence. The NDP keeps Jagoff Singh keep propping up the Liberals because he was waiting for his pension. He's only in it for himself. And he is done, and he just keeps saying, "Oh, I'll vote against him. I'll vote against him. I'll vote for so we have an election now," and he doesn't. He keeps backing because it's financially beneficial for him, and he also knows he's going to lose. He doesn't even have. He's like third in his own riding.
He is a placeholder. He's basically a Kamala Harris. He is like the diversity hire.
Because even the prime minister has their own riding, like as a representative for certain areas. He doesn't even have the chance of winning in his own riding. He knows as soon as the election's held, he's done.
So you guys are basically
we're locked into this no matter unless something happens.
It's a UK problem. You have your local what is it? We call it like in the US we have senators, but you guys are a local prime minister.
Yes, ours. Well, because we're still part of the British system technically. So yes, our things are very similar to them. Like if you even note, our House of Commons looks very similar. Like it's the same sort of style.
So how bad is the economy for you guys to turn around? Because I know it's not like the US. Like we know that we have enough, right? We just try to use what we have here, but
it almost seems like the U.S. biggest problem isn't that the money is an issue; it's where the money's going, and it's being wasted on stupid foreign things. With Canada, it's
wasted, and we don't make enough.
And we're also stupid enough that we can think we can win a trade war against Trump.
Well, no, I think the reason why it's like even if you have that partnership, right? Like. Okay? I asked this because, with the economy, right, you have to balance it out, but you have to, you have to have that. Now, what is the actual? Do you guys have the issue that was like in the U.S. a lot of unemployed, or was it just the jobs left? You lost a sector or something else?
No, we have a lot of unemployment. We have a lot of illegals, and not just illegals who sneak into the country, but
illegals having jobs.
No, but illegals. I'm more referring to, and it's a lot of Indians right now who are coming in on fake student visas or fake visas or fraudulent visas and taking jobs. When there's like a job at Tim Hortons, people will post pictures of lines around the block of just Indians applying for the job or at some menial job.
So is it Indians or is it like Pakistanis? Like, do you guys? I think I've
cab
heard
cab drivers, not the drunks. How could you say that, Malty?
I didn't say anything. But the housing crisis is terrible, and it's hilarious because they are so deep left and racist toward the whites. They basically create buildings to fight the housing crisis, but these buildings are forbidden to have white people in it. So it's basically building for immigrants.
So, okay. And the other part I had asked too is how much, in the terms of housing, right? what's the average? How much is the average rent gone up in the last 5-6
It
years?
depends on province.
Us, it's nasty here in Quebec.
Quebec, Toronto, and BC are the most expensive in the.
Vancouver is more.
Well, yeah, but BC and Toronto are the worst.
Yeah.
Or BC and Ontario are the worst for costs of everything.
And even me as the owner, in the last 5-ish years, my expenses went up crazy. And it's also interesting because I did level up in jobs and pays and such, and it didn't follow. 5 years ago I was a sergeant. It's like just underneath the supervisor but above the regular employees, and now I'm a supervisor, so basically a lieutenant, and I I don't feel like I increased.
Well,
And
it's like in the
I'm
US.
making more money. I'm making more money. I know it. I know the numbers, but I don't feel it.
So it's kind of like in the US, we had like it before COVID, right? We always had shipping issues or some. It was a little, but it wasn't as bad. Basically, regulations left industry to be bad. Like, and it's like wages weren't increasing with the cost of living. Like, I'm pretty sure in California, you heard about people are wanting like a 20, all progressives and what we call progressives and the other liberals in our country are wanting like you need like $20 an hour.
Here $20 an hour. If you're not an owner, good luck. I think an owner can survive with $20 an hour, but if you're just renting off, you will suffer. You won't be able to live a nice life, I think.
Is that just month to month, like paycheck to paycheck style?
Yeah. If you at 20 and you don't own, it's paycheck to paycheck. Hell, I will add this. My mom does almost $40 an hour, and she has 2 kids, and that are underage, and she struggles. Sometimes she borrow me some money because I got more money than her, and I'm making less money than her. So
So
Well, she took care of you for many years, so you owe her.
yeah,
So
I know.
here's the thing I'm wondering too, because I heard Dev or Short Fat of Tacos, I know him. He's moved almost twice in the last year.
Where does he live?
I want to say it's outside of Ontario.
Yeah, that Ontario as a whole is ridiculous.
Like he's moved at least twice. Like he's at least moving once every 6 to 8 months.
Is there a specific reason?
No reason. I'm not. From what I've saw, like he was one area long enough, unless it's just money.
We'd have to talk to his number one fan, but she's not here.
Well, she wouldn't know that because she doesn't listen. But like, I know he just got done moving.
So I guess that's the recap, Dlord. Housing suck, jobs suck, money suck, liberals suck.
But
so how does so when it comes to affording food, like here, like we've seen, how much higher has the essentials gone up in 3 years? Before
it's gone up. It's
like bread, milk,
I don't know the
eggs.
percentage.
It's so nasty. I can't tell the percentage, but it's nasty.
It's gone up a lot. You definitely know, like $100 in groceries isn't even a full like not even a cart. It's not even a full basket.
I'm a freak that eats stuff, and I don't really take care of myself, and it costs me money, a lot of money.
Okay, so if you go to the store, you need to buy lunch meat or bread. Let's say bread, lunch meat, sandwich material, milk and eggs or something, or cheese. How much does that generally cost you? Like enough?
Probably going to be around $20 or so, if not a little more.
Really? So your province is doing far better than me. I'm not eating cheese or bread, and I spend more, and I'm a freak again. What?
Okay. Now, this is what I just say. This is a metric you go by. You don't think of like if people have to buy bare essentials, you need lunch meat, you need stuff. Then you can get into the price of how much has chicken gone up, pork and beef gone up. Like if you need that.
No, it's prices have gone up ridiculous, and people are having trouble
Okay,
affording.
got it. Now they establish. I establish it this way, so we'd be even par. If that makes sense. Okay.
But you guys have a better outlook on your pricing in the next little while, better than we do. Ours are
the last
going
thing I'll
up.
ask is how bad has your supply chains gotten?
Well, since with the U.S. and how our government is being retarded and almost saying, "Well, we're not going to buy U.S. anymore," it's going to get bad.
Yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot by being stupid.
Like
the one thing that we were just talking about, which reaches on to another topic just before, there were an example they were using for pricing going up is the clubbing and nightclub industry and bar thing is going down because rent on buildings is too much, so people can't afford to have clubs or people can't afford to go clubbing. And I said that's kind of a poor example because the reason why that's not the reason why that sort of nightlife is dying. Nightlife is dying because of the Me Too movement, where guys are afraid of being said that they raped someone or afraid of saying the wrong thing and being accused of rape. Yeah. I don't think it's the cost as much as it is society and just the environment that's sort of fucked that over. And it started with COVID as well.
So how bad is I know Ontario, at least as a city, has more become over the years you've gotten more Indians and like foreigners.
You want Indians, you go to BC. BC has become
like how
BC has Quebec and a minority, bruh.
Quebec has become more full of
Muslims. Everything but white. You're not white in Quebec.
There are more Muslims in Quebec, but BC, the problem with BC, there's two big issues with them, other than just that they're run by the NDP, which looked like it was a fixed election. One, they have a lot of Indians, legal Indians who are coming in on
or when I mean Indians,
and they're rushing them through, and they're rushing them through training. Like there's a lot more trucking accidents happening if you pay attention to Twitter, where because they're not getting full training, they're not getting proper training. The other issue is BC is Canada's California, where they have free drug vending machines.
I didn't know this.
Outside hospitals, you can get the free drug. And the rise.
So the idea, right, is it skilled labor you're getting the immigrants over, or is it common?
No, it's just because nobody wants to do the job the immigrants
want. No, I'm asking, where are a lot of these? So, like, here, right, a lot of them are coming over as doctors or labor, like, skilled jobs.
No, here they come here because they want a job.
No, a lot of what Indians do is they get money and they send it back
Indians, Pakistani, or foreigner Asians. Like here in the U.S., they're being brought over. Majority of the time is either they're doctors, or if they're doing that, or they are tech people coming over.
It's not like that here. They just take whoever wants to come here.
Dlord, it's not all valuable people coming over. You guys wouldn't be having the issue if it was all valuable people coming over.
Like, most of these people don't have, like, even elementary level school.
No. They are taking the jobs that no one wants. Like, it's the exact same issue, but with different people that the U.S. is having problems with. You guys are having Mexicans. We are having more
everyone.
No, okay, mostly Indians. We do have some Muslims coming over because of the whole genocide, which is bullshit, but we're not here to talk about
Oh,
that.
so maybe they sent all of the African where I am because, dude, like
Who
they
does?
are
Okay, I
literal
heard a story
places.
about Africans. Like you were getting like
Oh, we get those too. I forgot about them.
You were getting Africans doing mining at some point.
Yeah, we still
Like they were
do.
doing the mining, they were doing the other.
Oh yeah, they come here on work visas, find a fat white chick to marry or a desperate white chick to marry, and then get permanent visas.
Yeah,
Someone jokingly called that white erasure.
yeah,
Oh, it's
I'm
replacement
sorry.
theory. It's replacement theory, and 100%.
yeah.
But no, but joke seriously. Like certain people here in the U.S., like even now, I live in Texas. We're getting not just normal Mexicans. We are getting we're getting like Venezuelans. We're getting everybody.
Yeah,
It's
you
probably-
guys get a lot of the South, the people from the South.
We get a few Mexican here as well, and they are really nice, but most of them don't even speak French, and I'm pissed.
But
they don't
here's-
like cold for the most part.
Yeah, African ate cold.
No, and this is what pisses me off about Canada. It just happened in Manitoba. It happened a few years ago. Someone was just arrested recently. A family was just arrested trying to cross the U.S. border into Canada without the proper gear, and they were in severe condition. Years ago, the same thing happened, and they felt pity for the person who did all that just to get into Canada, and they gave him a free visa.
Well, you supposedly have like people coming over because it's not like what's the housing like? Because housing you would need because like
we have
Will
housing.
Screedia was talking about this. Like even to get for him to get into like the UK, he needed to prove he had a trade in all of this or the way to make money because it makes it harder.
We don't need that here.
Yeah, you don't need that here.
For
And by the way,
legal immigration, you need that to become a citizen.
I heard a fun story. Well, I don't know if it's fun, but I find it special enough to mention it. So I know that person. They illegally went in the USA. They got caught, and then they got sent to Canada. And Canada was like, "Oh, we will give you asylum." So we take like illegals, immigrants from other places, and we're like, "Oh yeah, come here. We welcome you."
Our situation is pretty much very similar to yours, but instead of the Mexicans and all those bringing in drugs, the Indians are actually bringing in drugs, and then get a slap on the wrist and sent home. And I don't mean sent home as returned to country.
Is that because you guys had the needle trade program and all that years ago? You guys went from what was the policy called? It wasn't that because a lot of what you heard about Portland, they were doing the needle trade. It's the care versus harm like fallacy, where we know they like Portland and them were like, we know there's gonna be drug users, but we at least did a needle trade program. Then it was like, oh, weed is just a minor drug. I need it for cancer. Okay. Then it went to recreational use.
I don't know much about that.
Me neither.
Like that's an attitude. Like they did decriminalization, and I'm very aware of Mayor Ford, who.
Wait, which one are you referring to? The Coke one?
The brother that was fat that was supposedly doing crack.
Okay, because they're both fat. They look very similar. One is just dead from cancer who did crack and cocaine. And one is still in power and is retarded and hurting the province.
Oh, yeah. And here in Quebec, we had a great health minister that was morbidly obese. And he was speaking about how to be healthy.
The sad thing is that's not an uncommon thing. I think Australia also has that issue, and UK also has that issue.
This is your example, folks. So with that tangent, now you're caught up. And,
good. We're good. Thank you for filling me in.
And yeah, and now we will see the rest of that video. Maybe we will pause 2 or 3 times before the end because there's still like 3 minutes in. But let's see, why is Canada collapsing?
Whole of the Canadian economy. Less disposable income means less consumer spending. Businesses jack up their prices to compensate, and the same deadly spiral comes into effect. Of course, lots of corporations also use the crisis to hike up prices even further, while lining their executives and their shareholders' pockets. And the end result of all of this is that it just makes life worse. You have to think about it all the time, like making sure you only buy the cheapest versions of food, or even limiting your diet entirely based on what's cheaper. For the people who've been hit the hardest, it becomes a question of which bill you can afford to not pay. Often food.
Okay, I think next time we do a video, I'm going to find something to react to because you're picking more liberal propaganda. Going, the executives make all the money while everyone else suffers.
I don't know, bro. Well, I'm open for suggestion, but I find some videos interesting.
Once he said that, oh yeah, the employee, like they use this excuse to raise up their prices while executives make all the money and everyone else gets fucked over.
Isn't that just a normal attitude? Like,
yeah,
people are raised. Okay, not to counteract. Okay, if you know what we hear here, like I've seen people who are borderline super. Well, you have liberal, conservatives, independents here. I've seen people who have a system they're indoctrinated, or they've grown up in a system and they don't know it's like a tasteless prison. Even if I've heard from borderline independents or libertarians going into minor Republicans, the rich sometimes make too much. But I've even heard from our own conservatives, usually by conservative values, we don't hate the billionaires, but we recognize the billionaires exist. Greedy corporate capitalism is just as deadly.
Yeah.
Okay. The difference is there's people who think conservatives are greedy capitalism and corporations are just taking advantage of a situation, blah, 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 blah. Where the liberals are more, all corporations are evil and need to pay their employees more because they're doing all the work, and if it weren't for them. Conservatives understand that people take investments, people take risks to own businesses and build them up. They don't think that they're stealing all the money for themselves and giving everyone else zero. It's to the extent that liberals do, is the difference.
Oh, so apparently on that aspect, I'm more liberal. Wow, I just found something. Wow.
So the question you have to ask them is too, have they ever gotten a job from a poor person?
No, the example I use is my own in-laws. I was going to go, if a company goes out of business and you're an employee, what happens? You just lose your income and you're kind of fucked, but you just lose your income. So you start going into the red. When a business closes down and not shuts down, when they lose their business, when they can't afford to pay bills, one, they're already so far in the red that they can't afford to keep the business going. They lose their business. They lose a lot more. They put investments in. Some people have their houses put into their business. They lose more than just their income. They lose so much more. They're the ones who invested. They're the ones who risked it to build up a company. And people don't understand that. People think, well, we're doing the work, therefore we deserve more money than the people who own the business, which is bullshit. Businesses don't just start like that.
They grow. Yeah.
Almost every business starts out as small. Some start out as bigger small companies like Amazon's. But even Amazon started off as something small.
Amazon initially started out as the book warehouse where you bought and sell books online years ago.
Yeah. But it started off as something. It still was a big thing for them, but it was a small thing. And they took Bezos is an evil asshole who just should do it.
So, like, the idea there's difference. Like, let's say like a McDonald's or something. You still have the person who owns the Wendy's or the McDonald's still has to have a license for that store.
Oh yeah, what's it called? What's it called when someone opens up another McDonald's? Franchise fee.
Franchising, yeah.
Franchising, yeah. That's not just a simple oh, I'm going to open up McDonald's, make all
It
these
costs
people.
you money to have that stamp there.
Well, first you have to pay the company money to franchise it, to allow them to use your name, because they don't know who you are. You could be someone who could ruin their name and hurt their business. So they have to make some money off the start just to cover that. Then on top of that, you have to so as the person who opens it, you have to have the money to afford the franchising fee. Then on top of that, it's not just you say you want to do this and they give you a business and they open up and do all the work. They supply some things, but you have to go find the property. You have to go buy the property. You have to go make the investment into the building to make sure it's up to par and that you can do it.
Yes.
You then have to find employees who you think will then do the good job for you, and you have no accountability, or there's no one else to account except for you who is hiring them, that you're hiring the best people who aren't going to screw you over and hurt your name and hurt your business. But they think because the lower people are doing all the labor and all the hard work that they see, that owners and stuff don't deserve as much.
They deserve a lot, but people below as well should deserve more. But
it's lower education on how businesses run.
Yeah.
Like, you don't think about, like, it was my in-laws and I worked for them. So I saw a lot of things from the start. I saw when things were where money was low, they didn't get paid. They made sure the employees got paid before them.
That's true.
Like,
that's true. Otherwise, you lose them, and you have more work to do.
And the taxes you have to pay.
There is a difference between a corporate, like the guy who started We'll move on after this. Like, this gives you the idea and attitude, right? Sam Walton or whoever started Walmart never wanted to put mom and pop grocery stores out of business.
No, he started as a small store,
but his kids have a different attitude. They started corporatizing the store.
Well, but even before that, he was already opening up more stores, but they were still not the same thing. Then you always have the greedy people who go, well, we can make more money. They don't necessarily want to put other companies out of business. They just want to make the money. They just don't care what happens to other businesses.
Yeah.
But people don't, and there's a greed, but it's called it's called fairness. Like, you wanted to do it, you put the investment in. People who invest and want to make things bigger. There's companies that have invested in doing multiple businesses or chains, restaurants and stores, but lose their money from that because they can't, just because they're good somewhere and good at doing something doesn't mean they're good at doing everything.
Yeah.
And people take risks, but employees don't see that. And that's what pisses me off. It's like they don't see, because even corporations are just bigger versions of mom and pops. They still run the same way. It's just there's more levels.
That's why if you look at actually a lot of like corporate, have you ever seen like it was like a mouse? It looked like it was like the Mickey Mouse head, right? It's like, and it's in the circles diagram. Look at what Disney owns.
Well, yeah,
and like, and it goes into the idea of
monopolies.
There's a lot of corporate in that. And then there's the attitude. This attitude trickles down. They don't understand part of the economy, right? So they'll automatically go, oh, that rich person does whatever.
But they don't, and they don't see the risk. And if Disney went under today, the person who'd probably be out the most money is the person who owns Disney.
Yeah.
Because all the properties, everything would cost.
And he needs to pay everyone that works on that.
And ironically, that could happen this year. They have 4, and they are bleeding money. They just lost 700,000 subscribers.
Well, that's because of all the wokeism. But that's
it's not just that. It's not just that. And they're padding their streaming service numbers. And even a streaming service loses money.
Well, and the way they also look at streaming services, the way that they now also rate viewership for streaming, because isn't just how many people watch. That's not the numbers they're used for streaming like certain shows. What they also look at is how many people subscribed or resubscribed just to watch a show.
Yeah.
And that's
if a show is seen, that means people purchase that service for that show.
Well, that's one reason, like the Acolyte and the new Skeleton Crew weren't seen as good of a show as they were. Well, Acolyte was just garbage, but the Skeleton Crew wasn't a bad show. Like, it kind of was ruined by the end, but it wasn't a horrible show. Visually,
It didn't pay for it.
there weren't any really new. A lot of people watched
It
but
paid the price for Skeleton Crew. Paid the price for.
Acolyte.
It's just anything. It's basically apathy towards Disney.
Well, it's burnout. And it's the same thing with Marvel and Marvel and superheroes. There's a big burnout. There's a lot of wokeism put into that, but it's not even that. It's also burnout. Like, the stories are getting kind of lame. They're not, and it's just they're not picking the right things, and they're just kind of burned. And people are getting burned out by superhero movies. Like, I remember, it's after Iron Man 1 wasn't as big of a movie at first,
but it changed over the years.
Came out and they started connecting movies. That's when things started picking up. And then for Avengers, it was a big thing, and they went through it. But people are starting to get, okay, we've seen this before.
And now we go back on track, guys. Let's react to more, because we went on a weird tangent there that I like, but that's off topic.
Is one of the first things you have to give up. Then there's the non-essentials. Things you can only afford as rare luxuries like holidays or meals out at restaurants are now completely off the table. This brings us right back around to Trudeau's YouTube apology about immigration and his assertion that Canada's problem is a labor shortage. This comes as an insult to people who are working as hard as they can, but just aren't getting a fair deal from their country for it.
So, you know what's funny in the U.S. how we told our economy was shit?
Ours is worst.
Well, how we could tell when the problem comes when you start seeing less hobby spending, less entertainment spending. Because even during COVID, when you were trapped in the house, like GW made bukus on money.
Oh, hobbies did the best. Collectors.
Hobbies were making money.
Because you couldn't go and do stuff.
Video games.
Yes.
And generally, when you start seeing less entertainment spending, more on essential and bills, that's usually a bad sign.
Well, because you can't afford the extras.
That's true.
Working long hours just to scrape by is easily comparable to the effects that long-term unemployment has on people. You get the same worries with it, like the stress of not knowing whether you'll make it through the next month, or how far into the future you can go on for. But at the same time, you still have to work long hours every day. Wages have stagnated for years, prices are still rising, and a third of Canadian renters can't afford their rent. And it's no wonder then that so many people are slipping through the cracks when they're being squeezed this hard. Canada is now on track to have over 500,000 homeless people by 2030. The streets and the shelters are overflowing, and 10 cities have become a common sight in most large Canadian cities. And this is particularly awful in Canada, where temperatures drop.
This is happening in California because the cost of living. People cannot work in California. They can work in California, but they can't afford an apartment. So a lot of people were homeless or doing that.
There are literal camps with thousands and thousands of homeless. There are so many homeless in the goddamn metro.
They have that in the States as well. But it's also, and that comes also with the immigration thing, that they're giving all priorities to immigrants and illegals.
So our native from here all end up in the streets because we don't have enough house, because we don't know how to manage space, because we are goddamn stupid.
Well,
so how much does social services eat up of your budget? Like social engineering, keeping like insurance and everything.
I wouldn't be surprised that half of the tax is that, and a quarter is probably all of the pension and all of the money the stupid government has. And what's missing, I don't know. Any idea, Mandalore?
Well, there was just this thing I just saw. Let me bring it up. Where the hell was it? Who posted it?
Because usually when you have more social programs, right?
It costs you more.
Like, and that would be the trick. And how many of the people who are homeless in that are coming over and getting those as well? Or is it just normal?
Homeless, they only get a fraction. I think immigrant gets a lot more than homeless, because the homeless most of the time they starve, man. It's not for nothing they beg for money.
Trudeau's government has unnecessarily spent at least $80 billion on initiatives that exclude Canadians since 2016.
And people still want to vote for that shit. I want to
And
puke.
how much of the homeless population do you have that are addicts? That
Three
easily.
quarter.
No, the percentage.
Easy.
A lot of them are in BC right now.
3/4. By experience, most of the homeless I've dealt with as a security agent for years were addicts. So I wouldn't be surprised if like a good 75% is addicts.
Okay.
They inject themselves in freaking everywhere. That's disgusting. It's even harder to kick them out when they F around your property. It's annoying.
Now,
That's-
do you,
that's-
in
yeah.
as far as housing goes,
They
are
don't
they?
have an house.
No, I mean, as far
They
as
take
housing,
your
right?
property is their house.
No. When you're talking about housing, right? Do people go homeless because you can't get into actual apartments, or is it
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
the lease
It's-
policies, or
Well, that was
is
the thing that was shown earlier, where a big problem in Canada was that we have foreign people who are buying our properties and renting them out at higher prices, and we have people who are buying them. We also have a huge amount of houses that are being bought up and given to immigrants who then aren't even actually staying there and then renting those out for profit for themselves.
Yeah, and I also mentioned it. We had they made a building where no whites were allowed. It's all immigrants. So, like, to fight off the housing crisis, they do discrimination, which is very clever. Thanks to liberal guys are amazing.
so? Do they say like if you have like a conviction, you can't get in, or
Not
they
even
won't-
there. You just need to be white. You're not authorized. You're not entitled for now. So you're white.
You
You're
know how you guys
privileged.
have to, you know how they joke about in like California and a lot of the blue states that they have rotating door policing. We have
Here
the
it's
exact
like
same
that.
thing, if not worse, here.
No, not if. It's worse. They made literal building where they said
But
we
then
will
the problem
give
is,
these
there was
houses
just
to
someone who was
immigrants.
caught bringing truckloads of drugs in. They were allowed to go home on bail, and they were an immigrant.
And you see, what's kind of sad is ex-convict. They are shit on. They are treated like animals, and I think a lot of the homeless are not only people that cannot afford a home, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these homeless are also ex-convict because it's almost impossible for them to fit back in society because rehabilitation is trash here. It's
So, how much is the foreign investment in property in Canada?
I haven't looked into it. I don't know.
So, like, we have, like, in New York City, most of Upper East Side is literally rental policy.
oh, here it's rental policy everywhere.
Well, they own, like, they just rent out buildings just to rent buildings.
I know people like
There's
that.
no
a lot.
specific areas that are more so. It's throughout all the cities.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
that establishes, I say that because that means it's not just all poor foreigners, it's foreigners that have money.
Yeah, and ours is there's a lot of Chinese who do it here where they own and rent
Fact.
out.
And African as well.
We even have American women
African.
do it because, as I said earlier, when I worked for the plumbing company, we'd have to talk that there would be owners in the States and other countries who we couldn't even get a hold of. We had to talk to a middle person that they would buy out things and then hire someone to manage it.
Yeah.
Now, before I forget, though, how much in the economy, how much is your trade industry suffering? Like plumbers, electricians, and manufacturing?
They don't even do that much money, to be honest. They
do good money, but it's not comparison to the States how much they do.
Well, I mean, it's still an essential part of your economy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's good. Like, if you can't go to school and be a professor, you can go do a plumbing, and plumbing is just as
Well,
valuable.
plumbing is actually, there's a school for plumbing as well, but it's shorter. It's like 6 months, and
Well, there's multiple. You have to go to school for a couple years, but it's not all like 4 years for a doctor. You have to register.
It's a trade program.
Yeah, you have to register as an apprentice. You have to do some work. Once you get enough hours, then you go to school for your first level, and then you do some more hours, and where you train for doing things, and then you go for your. There's people though who can come
We
into
call
it.
that a journey. It's like a journeyman.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same thing. And if you've done it for years, like there's people who, before this was a thing, that they were tradesmen and that they were doing the work, and then you can challenge and go, "Well, I've been doing this for 4 years. I know all. I've been doing this for many years. I can challenge the highest level that you go to school for," and then you do a test, and then you get So it's pretty much the exact same thing with that.
And I think we can play a bit more of that. We are near the end, and I see time flies.
Well below freezing for months at a time. Homelessness and poverty breeds crime and drug use. It might not be long before Canada loses its reputation for beauty and friendliness precisely because its government has been so harsh to its people. Immigration is wrapped up in this as well, and it's another reason the situation in Canada specifically has become so dire. Trudeau and the wider establishment have been happy to facilitate mass migration into Canada for years because it suits their interests. More immigrants means more working people to fill jobs and a more productive economy. At least that's how the theory went, but it fails to consider all the negative effects that immigration has had. Nearly everyone who moves to a country either temporarily or permanently is looking for work, but they also need a place to stay, and this only adds fuel to the housing crisis fire. More demand means higher prices, and recent migrants are much more likely to be renting a place than buying it, meaning migration has an outsized effect on the rental markets in particular. Crumbling under an overwhelming wave of public opinion, Trudeau has finally announced that
I will contradict what something was said. He said they are more likely to rent than buy. I think it's not truly true 100%. I think there's a lot of percent of immigrant that rent out, but based on my experience of someone surrounded by immigrants, I'm the minority pretty much anywhere I go. I can tell that a lot of them own, a lot of them buy, a lot of them actually have money.
It's not even that they're renting; it's that they're giving free housing for immigrants.
Yeah, that's also true.
Which is making things where people are getting paid, where they're getting their house paid for by the government, and they're ruining neighborhoods, and then people to come over, and it's
disgusting. I will play, but a lot of immigrants actually buy properties because they got money.
the Canada will be limiting immigration more for the next few years at least.
We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years.
For lots of people, though, it's a little bit too late. We can be sure that the move definitely has nothing to do with its upcoming re-election campaign and its historically low approval ratings.
What did you want to say something, Mandalore?
Oh, I already said it. It's bullshit. He's not reducing. We're still bringing people in.
That's true.
For lots of Canadians at this point, any kind of change at the top would be a welcome relief from nearly a decade of the same government. But these long-term problems aren't going to reverse themselves anytime soon, and it could be a long time before Canada can get back on its feet once again.
I don't think it's possible. I think we are past
Trudeau
that
too
point.
fucked us that we need to be brought into the U.S.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And as I said, it's not as much as I joke going, I want to become part of the U.S. I much rather be where we were early 2000s, late 90s, where we were equal to the States, where our dollar was similar, and it went back and forth, where sometimes we'd have the higher dollar for a day, and then this U.S., and it went back and forth. I'd much rather be back there
than where we are right now.
Well, no, than just going to the U.S. because there's issues with the U.S. for people who are used to Canadian life. But we don't. But at this point, U.S. is the best option for us right now. Because even if Pierre wins, I don't know if he's willing to do enough, or because he's already sort of with the whole tariff wars and trade war, he's kind of shown to be just as useless. Most of the conservatives have shown. The only one who's shown any sort of real leadership is Daniel Smith from Alberta, who's actually trying to work something out between the two countries. Like a single premier is trying to help the whole country, and when the whole country is just shooting themselves in the foot at the same time. But I think we need the U.S. at this point.
And I agree with you 100%. It's not for nothing that people are worried we get taken over by the U.S. because it's not doing well. If it was doing well, we wouldn't want them
we have the liberals who don't want to become part of U.S. because they're like, Trump is evil. We don't want to be part of that. It's like Trump is trying to help Canada. all his demands have not been give us free shit or else. It's been make your country better, fix yourselves up, dress yourselves up, and you'll be fine. And our liberals and some of our conservatives are going, no, fuck you.
Well, they do
And we
that
sound
here.
stupid because we are stupid.
Oh, yeah.
I guess this is the moment, except if you guys would like to add anything on the collapsing of Canada. I think
we
it's
kind of. I think it's kind of the thing. Like we said it. Like once we saw the whole trucker problem that you guys developed. That was like the last gasp of freedom. We jokingly said for you guys,
and that's true.
It was like the sign of like once Trudeau got rubber stamped, right? You know.
Well, and you saw how the Canadian government handled the truckers.
That was disgusting.
Well, that was your guys' January 6th. They basically took like they said, "Oh, you can use the Emergencies Act to seize any money they have."
Oh, and people who donated to the truckers just so that they could buy food.
Yeah, even the cops were on their side, but they don't tell that much. So I guess this is the outro. What do you have going on, Dlord?
Oh, just normal. Just nothing planned, really. I've just been trying to get my health back to normal. Got commentary. I'm trying to get some people together for a little project, but it's trying to corral people's heart.
Well, if you need people for commentary, I do nothing.
I know I'd have to give like that. It's probably that. But one thing I need to do is cover somebody who's a mutual enemy of some people. A man got revealed as a simp.
That's tragic.
It's bad. But other than that, it's would be U.S. political.
Don't tell me who, but a simp for what or for who?
Oh, you wouldn't know who the guy is.
Oh, so it's just another.
It's called Sweet Vindication.
Ah.
And I guess we are going to be reacting to the lovely movie that nobody wants to see. I don't want to see Falcon fight Red Hulk.
I want to, but
I'll still see it, but I'm not. I have no. It's
just a side topic based on that. Have you seen the China marketing for that?
No Falcon, no Black Falcon.
Did they shrink him?
No, it is. They have the picture of Hulk or Red Hulk versus Falcon.
Oh, I've seen which.
Yeah, they have the whole Falcon blacked out.
There's like 5 different posters.
Yes, and pretty much all the Falcon pictures are blacked out.
Wow!
It's Red Hulk fighting a shadow.
It's basically like, it's basically the second Star Wars thing all over again with Finn.
But with
and Rose to go and shove him off into the corner.
Yeah.
See, Finn wasn't as much. He was a main character, but he was sort of a side main character.
No, but in China they shrunk it.
No. But my point is, Falcon. It's in the movie. He is part of the main character.
That's worst. So Mandalore, what do you have going on your end of the internet?
Waiting for a next stream to respond to with someone. My birthday's coming up soon, so not looking forward to that.
Happy birthday, man.
You too.
So, in my end, tomorrow we talk movies. Wednesday or Thursday, there's a question mark. Either I will be doing a tier list video stream with Gray, or we will be reacting to something else. And this time around Mandalore, I'm open for suggestions because that could be interesting. If
actually find things.
If I don't end up doing the movie tier list stream, I will be doing a reaction video with you guys. If you're both available,
so it should be for your Wednesday.
Wednesday or Thursday, I don't know yet. We will see. It depends. And if I end up doing that movie stream, the next react we will be doing will be most likely Saturday, kind of late night, because I got stuff going on Saturday, so it will be Saturday late night if guys are available. Outside of that, I'm looking forward for next week. Because
I
next
am
week,
looking for people to do, but it'd be
fuck it.
over. I'm trying to do the. I have to get like down here. I don't know if you know. We've been going through a little mini war for all of Trump's nominees. It's like they want like Robert Kennedy Jr., right? Because it's like he has all these different nominees. I've been just trying to get the stuff together. Because like the guy who's gonna be the head of the CIA is a Indian guy.
Yeah.
Like he has, but then they want like RFK Jr. for like health, but he's also anti-vax and stuff.
But
Like,
no, he's not completely anti-vax. He's anti-vax mandate and the more modern vaccine.
but he's also it opens up the door of he believes the vaccines give autism and stuff, and that's bad too.
That's misinformation and bullshit. I guess
You can
with
do
this, we
yes.
are out for tonight. I'm looking forward for the next React stream, either Wednesday, Thursday, or Saturday, depends on what's going on. And also an Advance Wars stream Saturday. So Saturday will be crowded the stream for my end of the internet. And we are out for today. See you tomorrow for movies.
All right, I gotta get going.